Hello everyone, LegenDS here, and welcome to Fire Garden. Today, I present to you a new podcast format where we will talk about Mortal Kombat Mobile. We will hold the first podcast with an old-school player, ManWithNoGame45. Together we will remember how we got acquainted with the McKay universe and how it all started.
Hello and welcome in everyone to Kombat Talks Black episode number 7. Legends never die. ManWithNoGame45 here, and I'm very pleased to welcome my special guest today, LegendaS. LegendaS, maybe not everybody in our audience is aware of you. I think they pretty much are, but just in case they aren't, why don't you take a moment to introduce yourself?
Hello everybody, I'm LegendaS, a Russian YouTuber who is maybe even more popular right now among non-Russian community and for English speakers as well, due to the fact that I was involved in several podcasts together with ManWithNoGame45 as well as Man and Star in Sky, where we were talking about Mortal Kombat Mobile. And today I am very glad to be here together with my friend and subscriber of myself as well. His name is NK, his nickname is NK, and he is gonna help me translate and understand from Russian to English and from English to Russian between LegendaS, me and ManWithNoGame45.
Welcome LegendaS and NK. NK, thank you very much for serving as our translator today. I wanted to let everybody know that the theme of this episode of Kombat Talks Black, episode 7, is Legends Never Die. I chose this theme because it really speaks to my experience now, having quit MK Mobile twice in the past, planning to leave it for good when I did, even giving away my account this last time, and only coming back because of my continued involvement with my friends and this MKM community. And right now I think we all can agree that where the state of the game is at is indisputably the worst it has ever been. And unfortunately that seems to be the case with every new update that's coming out. And more players are quitting every day. Our community is growing smaller and smaller. And that's why I thought it would be important for us just to reflect on why we still play. And at the heart of our show today is the idea that what we've found most memorable, what's captivated our imaginations, and especially the stories that we tell will always call to us through time. True legends never die. So taking it back to the beginning, I'd like to know about some of your first experiences with playing Mortal Kombat and who your first original main character was.
Thank you very much for your question. I started playing this game on console Sega Mega Drive, and probably in the US it calls Sega Genesis, but I'm not sure. And in my first game was called Ultimate MK3, which I really like a lot, and I really enjoyed playing this game in the past. And my very first character, which I liked the most, was Sub-Zero, the Kuai Liang version, so the human version, the brother of basically the original Sub-Zero. And he really enjoyed his scar and the mechanic of the character related to Frozen and this ice clone and sliding was the best.
For me, my first experience in playing Mortal Kombat was actually, I started out as a Street Fighter II player. That's what I mainly did in the arcades. And Mortal Kombat came out and it changed everything. There were always lines at the cabinet to play, and you had to put your quarters up to get in line. And so it was so popular that I could hardly ever get a chance to play it. But also, I was working at the time. I was very young. I was actually below working age, but I was working under the table at my family's business. And my brother, his mom would take him to the video arcade to play. and I would work, so I didn't get as much of a chance to get very good. And my brother was always better than me at Mortal Kombat, and so I didn't have much of a main character in the first, but when the second came out, that's when I came into my own, and I loved to play Baraka, and I did the chop, and I figured out the fatality was pretty easy to chop their head off, and that was certainly my favorite experience with MK, was playing the original MK2 on cabinet. Now, my other question for you, LegendaS, you love to play Sub-Zero. What was the first title that you really became a dominant player on, and your main at that time? You know, were you able to own people on Ultimate MK3 on the Genesis, or was it later on that you came into your own as a player?
Unfortunately, I do not remember very well when was it, because it was such a long time ago, when I was around 13. That's why I cannot recall, and I also remember that I was constantly sick all the time during my childhood, and I was not at home most of the times, and that's why I also didn't play a lot of time in the video games in general, and mostly I was drawing. I really liked drawings, and yeah, and I was drawing even before, when I was 10 and 12 or 12, something like this. And I was always drawing characters from Mortal Kombat, which I still have.
That's awesome. I actually did a fair amount of drawing on MK myself when I was young. I was really inspired by the comic books. I got some of the comic books, the originals that first came out, and I still have those. It was a real inspiration to all of us at that time. You know, there was just something about it. I think because it was so extreme, so dangerous, you know, that's kind of what called to me, you know, and the secret things about it, you know, the fact that you could unlock secret stages, fight battles with secret characters, even the fatalities, you had to know the certain combinations. So there was really kind of a lure to it, because there was such mystique, these hidden things within the game. I think that was one of the things that appealed to me the most. But I did want to share the first title I really enjoyed and got to play a lot of. I didn't get to play a lot of MK either, because like I said, you know, I was working a lot of the time, and it drove me to become better, because my brother, who I had a rivalry with, spent a lot of time in the video arcades, and he could just destroy me. So that kind of drove me to be better. But I became much more of a dominant player when I was finally able to get a console, and that was around the time I was in high school, and I played MK4, and Scorpion was my character then, and it was just one of these things where you could teleport back and forth, and you could cheese people so bad. It would start fights, you know, playing with people. They just hated to play, and I was cheap. I don't know that I had that much of a skill set. I just knew how to cheaply beat people over and over with Scorpion, and Quan Chi, you know, had the stomp that he would do in MK4, and all of those things were.
I totally agree with the fact that you should fight with rivals who are better than you, so that they help you become better as well. And that's why I think it's a great idea that you were always competing with your brother to be better in the game.
Yeah, that certainly drove my will to get better for a long time. It really helped me form a love for Mortal Kombat in general. So I played every title, and it's kind of a funny story how I got into MK Mobile. I'm not going to cover too much of it here, because it's already been covered in Game Time Gaming's podcast, the Mortal Kombat podcast episode 2. So I'd say listen to that if you want to hear more about it. But I'd certainly love to hear more about LegendaS. What prompted you to download the game? How did you get into Mortal Kombat Mobile in the first place?
Basically, what happened is, first of all, I used to have always just simple phones for myself because I only had to have phones to call, basically. And I was never interested in new versions of the phones with the sensor screens and this sort of things. And I normally never like to play on mobile in general. But after a while, I saw somebody was playing on the phone in the games, which with a good graphics, which really hooked me in a way that I realized that nowadays the games even on mobile devices can be very good graphically and visually, like old versions of PS1, for example, right? And that the technology already jumped to a certain level, and that's why I was interested in that, and I started looking up maybe on YouTube for different games as time killers for Android, where, for example, you can play it, for example, when you are sitting in a queue or you're waiting for something, or you have like 10-15 minutes or something when you are in a transport or in metro and this sort of things. And that's how I found MK Mobile in the first place.
That's awesome. It's funny that you had such a low opinion of mobile games, just like I did. I mean, I looked at it, the Candy Crush, Angry Birds, they're just all these games that I really had zero interest in playing. Clash of Clans, that type of stuff. And I really did not want to play Mortal Kombat Mobile myself. But after I saw that I wanted the cybernetic Jackie Briggs skin in KX Bubblehead, I had to have her. I wanted to play with that skin in my game. I'm kind of a completionist, because of the way that MK is. Having something there that's locked, that you can do something to unlock, really always intrigued me. And so I started playing the mobile game myself. And what got me hooked was just the actually battle mode and some of the challenges there, because I mostly only had bronze characters, although I was lucky enough to start because I had the console link with Ninja Mime Johnny Cage. But as I mentioned in the other podcast, one of the very first battles that hooked me was playing against Sun God Kotal Khan, and it was a very simple mechanic that you had to click these little balls of health to kind of shield yourself or keep yourself from being poisoned. I can't remember specifically, since it's been so long since I actually played that part of the mode, but you had to click these little balls and kind of heal yourself and pick your times to attack him. And it was the first time I'd lost in mobile. I'd been pretty dominant, and losing really got me hooked and wanting to play that mode more and more and build my collection. What was it for you about playing MK Mobile that got you hooked?
My story about why I downloaded and continued playing this game and why it hooked me on is a little bit long, but I will try to make it shorter and make it in few sentences right now. It was 2018, and I bought a new phone, and I wanted to play Mortal Kombat somewhere, and I saw on YouTube or watch a video that if you download an emulator, you can play, for example, Mortal Kombat Ultimate via the phone or like an emulator on an Android device, and that's what I did. I got the game and I installed it, but honestly it was not very comfortable to play on like touch screen and in general on this emulator, and that's why after I was thinking like maybe there is another game for like similar to Mortal Kombat which I can play, and that's how I found Mortal Kombat Mobile. But when I downloaded it, I didn't really like the interface that much, and it was a little bit difficult for me to understand and play. And that's why I actually had first of all, the negative experience about it, and I quit the game. I didn't want to play it.
That's amazing, though, that you quit playing in the beginning and then you ended up picking it back up, because for me, it really got its hooks in pretty early on, and I think it might have been the time that I started playing the game. It was a much better time to become a MK mobile player then, because they had new stuff coming with every update. Made it very hard to put down. We would get almost, the amount of characters we get in a year now, we would get in one update then.
To continue with my story, why I come back to the game again, it was just a coincidence, because I was just about to meet a friend of mine to train together somewhere outside, and when I met him, I saw that he was playing a Mortal Kombat Mobile, and then I was just curious about what he's playing and what game is it, which version is it, because I also played it before, right, like a year ago, but the game looked different to me when he showed me. It looks like a new version, an updated version, and and then I realized that let me try to, let's say, to come back and give this game a second chance. And I just realized that actually I quit the game a year ago, but I didn't delete it from my phone completely, and I still had it back then on my phone. And that's why I just needed to update it to the current version, and then I launch it, and then I realized, yes, indeed, it's the same game. It's just that which I used to play 1 year ago, which I didn't like, and now with the new interface, everything becomes better, and the look is better, and it's more friendly for the beginners, because it's the first time when I was playing the older version, I got lost there. And I saw that the game has nice mechanics. I started kind of digging into it a little bit, and I realized that the game is kind of like a collection card game, which is very similar to, in a way, I mean, similar to Hearthstone, because Hearthstone is also collection card games, but which I also used to play a lot, and I also like it. But comparing to Hearthstone, of course, Hearthstone is more like, let's say, tactical, and Mortal Kombat is a fighting game. But what he liked more about Mortal Kombat Mobile within that time was that Hearthstone was dependent on, let's say, your draw, and not only the tactics but also random, because if you just got wrong card in your hand, so it's over. And Mortal Kombat got him because at the mechanic, and that everything depends on yourself, not on the random, but at least it was in 2018, let's say, and 19.
I think you picked a very good time to start playing if you were playing pre 2.0, and it's a good thing that you did, because so many more characters were available to beginning players. And if you got in around that time, you probably had quest mode, a way to get more souls. The challenges were happening more often than, if I'm recalling correctly. There just was a lot more going on in the game towards the end of 2018. It was probably the best time to be playing. And what I'm really curious about is, what was your first original gold team that you were maxed out with and used in Faction Wars a lot? And for me, it's kind of embarrassing, but I had the cybernetic Jackie Briggs, undercover Cassie Cage, and Cutthroat Kano, because those were the golds that were available for coins only back in the day. As long as you had unlocked them in the cross-platform unlocks, you could get access to them. And I would get destroyed by these Jason teams, Jason and Warlock Quan Chi combination teams, or back then it was Dark Emperor Liu Kang would be in slot 1, and there was almost nothing that you could do to counter him, and he would just kind of destroy your team Plus, as soon as they came out with Revenant Kung Lao that added the bars of power to the Netherrealm, it was possible to load up with a fatal blow in the beginning. And I remember just how disappointed I would be with my weak gold teams starting a match in Faction Wars only to eat a fatal blow and to have one of my teammates gone, and there is just no way to win the match at that point. But at the same time, it inspired me. You know, it made me want to do everything I could to earn those blood rubies, to get Liu Kang myself, and also to earn Revenant Kung Lao. I couldn't wait for his challenge to come back because I had missed it the first time. So very curious about some of your first experiences with your first maxed out original gold team and in playing Faction Wars at the time that you started.
For me, I do not recall my first original full maxed out team because I had a little bit different approach to the game. What I mean is, for example, when my friend showed me the game first time, he explained me a little bit how it all works. And because I had a previous experience playing in MMORPG games, I really like the idea to, you know, to make my characters better and to grind and play faction wars. And I used to play a lot of battles in quick faction wars when I have time. I wanted to look into YouTube for different guides to basically see what are the strategies or what are the best cards to play or max out, but unfortunately I didn't have or I didn't see any YouTube channels which could provide good guides. I only saw something like Let's Play or streamers or the ones which just have pack opening videos, so it was not very useful. That's why I started looking into it myself, and I was playing a lot of faction wars, getting a good rating. And I remember now I even have a time when I got 4 diamonds in Raw, like Scorpion MK11 together with Injustice 2 Raiden. However, after that I didn't have any new diamonds. That's why I was mostly playing from the beginning with Silver Kenshi, and from my gold cards I was playing basically only with Combat Cup Johnny, Aftershock Tremor, and Kung Lao for critical chances, and they were not maxed out, but they were around Fusion 4, I believe, and that's how I was playing, and I was not really focusing on the fusions, and during the tower battles I could progress further with other cards.
It's very interesting to hear the experience of a player, you know, primarily building their collection after 2.0, because you could build with a lot more intent prior to 2.0, because at that time, you know, you could pick the cards that you wanted to buy essentially in the store as soon as you had enough coins or enough souls. But there are some things that are consistent. Like I played a lot of matches with Silver Kenshi coming up in the beginning because he was so good, and the passive, you know, that would increase his attack damage and health based on his teammates being spec ops and martial arts. So I think there are a lot of things that players share in the experience, even though it was very different. But speaking of sharing, I'm curious what prompted you to start sharing your gameplay with the community. What made you decide to start a channel on YouTube? For me, it was just I've been doing a lot on Twitter and being part of that community, and I realized I was making videos that were longer, especially pack opening videos. They were longer than what I could post on Twitter. So I had to start up a YouTube, and I had a good friend of mine from Twitter, Casey Mobile Gaming, who helped me put together an intro, and then I started making videos for a channel. It was kind of just this one thing led to another, and before I knew it, I was a content creator. But I'm curious what led you to share your gameplay with the community and start your own YouTube channel.
Me, the most important thing why I started my YouTube channel was this fact that when I needed, I didn't have any guides on YouTube, and that's why I was lacking or I was searching for guides which were clear and easy to understand for beginners, and maybe showing also what to do, how you in your progressing, and also what not to do, like showing mistakes or how not to do certain things, maybe which packs not to buy and this sort of things. That's what's the main reason why I decided to have my own channel to share this stuff with the community and with the beginners. And I also still consider myself as a beginner, because what I mean is, even though I have been playing already for quite some time, like more than 2 years, I always learning something from time to time, and I feel myself still as a beginner in this case, and yeah, that's the main reason why I started making videos and started a YouTube channel.
One of the other things that I wanted to ask you about LegendaS specifically is, is there a match that you played and have shared that was very memorable for you personally when you did it, and kind of the experience that you had with it? For me, it was definitely the Black Dragon 200. When I put that up, I had no idea how much attention it was going to get, and it was one of those things, as I played it, I knew I'd done something incredible, and I started to share it, but I had no idea how many people it would reach. So I was curious if you had a match like that specifically that was very memorable to you, and the experience that you had with it.
I have several battles which were remarkable, but of course the first hard one which I remember, or the one which I beat, was in Linkway Tower when it launched first time, and the battle was 194, where a lot of players stopped or couldn't pass. So the battle was with Jade, Cabal and Scorpion MK11, and the modificator, I believe, was Enraged. So basically they were attacking you non-stop with fatal blows and X-rays, and that was a very challenging battle. I remember especially that when I beat this battle actually with MK11 Scorpion, which was only Fusion 2, and that was for me very impossible and quite remarkable to realize that even with a good strategy, even with the weak characters, this battle is possible to pass and to complete. And I also remember that you, ManWithNoGame45, also completed this battle with silver characters, which I find very impressive. And yeah, it's very nice to see that there are some players who really see and make strategies and think out of the box how to complete difficult battles.
Yeah, that personally was a turning point for me, because I had an idea and I wasn't sure if it was going to work, and I wasted a lot of attempts. Actually, I think it took me quite a few. I might have even gotten a full refresh full of attempts trying to pull that match off with silver cards. So that was a lot of fun, but at the same time, it's one of those things you got to measure that against your risk and your own drive to complete the game. So that's been one of the challenging things for me to balance when I've been doing content creation, is kind of experimenting, but having it maybe cost you some attempts, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. My next question for you then would be, what gives you the most satisfaction as a content creator, and at this point, why do you keep on making videos? Because I've struggled with that a bit personally myself, and in the past I've made guides, but the issue for me is they've taken away so many of our tools. They've made it so difficult for players to be able to beat matches without buying tower gear. I look at you as a real inspiration for showing people how to do it still. But I know, and Chris Play as well does an amazing job for helping beginners pass these ridiculous challenges. But it just seems like their goal is to destroy that, to make it impossible, unless you're willing to pay. So I guess what drives you to keep making videos given the circumstances?
Well, for me, I think because the mechanic of the game is still not totally broken, even though after each update it's getting worse and worse, and until the moment while we can still play with certain characters and utilizing the unique passives, and the mechanic is not totally broken, I would keep making my videos without like using bugs or cheats or those sort of things to pass certain battles. And I still see a purpose in doing it, even though, as I mentioned, considering the current circumstances, it's harder and harder to play like this, because I do believe that in the past your skill was more important than your wallet, and while it still stays that the skills is better than your wallet, it motivates me still, and it's satisfying me as well to make content. But yes, I agree that after each update they make it more and more impossible to do, and yeah, I got disappointed with the last update as well, when they change a lot of things, and given certain circumstances, yeah, the game is disappointing, and that's why I also reached out to you guys to discuss about it, and to hopefully that the developers will not kill it all and will do something about it.
And I think that really leads into the last section that I wanted to talk about in this podcast. That is the future of the game. And what you just said takes me back to one of the things I was discussing with you on YouTube comments. You mentioned with one of your last matches that you posted that the fire that had driven you was dying. It was down to its embers. It was almost gone. And I'm just curious for you, what would bring the fire back? What would get you excited to play the game again? You gathered us all to speak to what's wrong with the game, but what could they change? What could they do better that would help bring it back for you? If there's only one thing you could change about NK Mobile right now, what would it be and why?
If I was responsible for change, I would make the game to come back a little bit to the moment where the mechanic, the whole mechanic and frame data of the game was not so broken as it is right now, and where we could still utilize different characters and make different synergies and strategies between them and experimenting. And as a reward for the good mechanic for the game, we would willingly spend our money to buy certain packs, for example gear packs, what we can do now, but just to support the developers, not because you have to, but because you want to, as the game is so great. Or even making it better that we could support the game with money by buying certain visual and cosmetic things in the game, instead of something which they are kind of forcing you to buy. Maybe something visually or cosmetic things which is not directly related to gameplay, but only helping you maybe enjoy or have different effects and this sort of things, which would make buying not like a necessity to play and win certain things, but more like as a thank you for the developers for a great game instead.
And I couldn't agree with that more. I think it's quite sad that they've made your ability to advance and do certain things within the game dependent upon financial contribution, when I think lots of other games have shown just how you can follow a different model, like you're saying, where players get cool content that's fun, it's awesome, but it's superficial. It doesn't affect the underlying gameplay. So I agree, with that for sure. And I guess the other thing I would put out there is, for the amount of money this game generates, there really is not much content that's created. And I think that's a huge part of the issue. They are trying to lock everything up and limit everything so much because they will not invest in the game. They will not produce more. They will not commit the sort of resources that are required to really develop. It's so limited what they actually create for the game. And I don't, obviously we as players, we don't have insight into the back end and what their costs are versus what they make, but we've got some. You can find some things online. SensorTower.com projects the revenues to be about $1.5 million to $2 million in a month for iOS and Android combined. And to me, that's no small property. And I guess my message to the developers and the owners of the game would be, we're seeing the numbers drop. I see the amount of views on each of the major YouTubers' channels declining. I see people leaving the community all the time. If this game is an asset for you, and if you want your brand of Mortal Kombat Mobile to be well regarded by players, you have to do more to take care of it. You have to create more of a reason for people to keep playing. More than anything, there needs to be new content available for players free to play, and the rewards cannot be kind of a scam where players get cheated after completing these massively hard difficulties. I guess one of the things that really gives me hope for the game is I believe there are plans at some point to bring back kind of a community mode to the game. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the ally packs that we had originally. It was kind of a cool thing, but there was a mechanic in the game in the beginning. It went away right before 2.0, but we could essentially press a button and use an X-ray from some other person's team to aid us in our battle mode. And for me, early on as a player, that was really helpful, and it also showcased what I could have on my team someday, a character that I might be able to acquire. But I think one of the big things that MK Mobile is missing right now is any kind of collaborative way of working together as a community, which it's interesting in Justice 2 Mobile. They have these big raids and stuff that they do, and I would think that having a new game mode like that could engage communities, clans, things like that, some type of new game mode that would add community elements where we could all work together would really help to save MK Mobile and give it much more depth than it has in gameplay right now. And I hope that there's something like that they'll add in the not too distant future. But I'm also curious to hear as well, is there a new game mode that you would love to see added to MK Mobile?
Yes, I absolutely agree with your point that having social element in the game is crucial for communication as well, and for making this game and maintaining it more interesting in the future. For example, I used to play World of Warcraft. This is kind of game where it almost forcing you to socialize, not only in chat but also in voice channels. But unfortunately now this game is becoming more like a single play rather than MMOR, and that's why you can see that the game is losing audience and become less interesting, and people are leaving. And that's why I totally agree that communication is the key and definitely makes it more interesting. And from my point of view, unfortunately right now I don't have any clear idea what can be a new mode I would like to see. The only thing I would like to highlight is any mode would be good, even if it would be like an experiment mode which might not be successful. Anyway, that's better than like having a bad mode at the beginning and make it better or disappear is still better than not doing anything. Because what we see now currently in the game, they are not doing anything in developing and in fixing their own bugs for months, and that's very important to fix as well. So that's something also which is bothering me.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. The bugs really need to be fixed. I think many players would agree. Even just shutting the game down for a short amount of time, a few days, a week, we'd take it if everything would be fixed and work the way that it's actually supposed to. So I think we all agree, and that's a great place to close. We have a deep love for this game. I know that's why we're all here. That's why we share content. That's why we make casts like these. And I wanted to give a deep, heartfelt thank you to LegendaS for coming on here to share his views and opinions on MK Mobile, to show us in the community what we all continue to play for and some of the things that we love the most about MK and MK Mobile. I think even though for a lot of us it seems like the game is dying, in many ways we find new inspiration and ways to play and enjoy the game. But I hope that the game developers and the people who are in charge of this will start to help us with that instead of making it so that we have to work on our own ways to love and be inspired and to hang on to this game. Thank you both for coming on the podcast, and also NK especially for serving as a translator for us. I know it's no easy task.
Yes, thank you. Just for my wrapping up, I would like to do it in a little bit positive clause, because we were talking about mostly negative things in the game, but I just would like to say that no game is basically forever, and even though we have some bad things in the game and currently happening, we need to still appreciate what they do for the game and the developers, what they're trying to do. And sometimes our expectations are not the same as we see after a while, and despite of all the things, just a game. And I would say that we need to remember good things about the game as well, and not to focus on the bad things. And we ultimately choose for ourselves if we want to play this game or not. Maybe for some people it's time to leave and try something else, but others are still playing and enjoying. And that's why I would like to say that we don't need to hate this game if we play it. We just need to ultimately we need to have fun and hope that for the best for the game as well. And hopefully we will still be playing this game and having good times. And to conclude, my links for my channel and Twitter would be in the description below, on the channel from ManWithNoGame45. And I really enjoyed talking to you today, as well as I wish to all our subscribers the best in the game, as well as in their personal life. Of course, a big health to all of you, and thank you and goodbye.
Terrific. And I just do want to echo LegendaS' sentiment. I think it's always a choice whether or not to play this game, and I have left this game myself a couple times in the past, and I think sometimes that's the best thing you can do, and you can see if it's worth it to you to come back. And I found a lot more joy in playing for a second time and changing how I play and the level of commitment that I have. And I think that's something for all players to consider, that the dynamics of the game are changing as well. Our level of commitment to playing it, how we play it, can change as well. If you need a break, do take a break from the game, but hopefully it's something that brings you joy. And that's why I created this episode for us, really, is to reflect on the things that we love about the game and about MK in general. So I'm glad we had a good time discussing that today. And again, thank you, LegendaS and NK, for joining me on this cast today.
These 45 minutes were one moment, and we would like to discuss a lot more. I express my great gratitude and respect to you, my friend. And you must subscribe to the YouTube channel, ManWithNoGame45, where you can listen to others' podcasts and the incredible gameplay from the old school. I will leave a link to the ManWithNoGame45 channel in the description. Let me know if you want more podcasts and with which YouTuber. Also suggest topics for discussion on the podcast that you care about. If you're a beginner or an experienced player, join our Fire Garden in Discord, where we can share tips and help each other in passing the towers and share our own awards. Unfortunately, I will not be able to devote all the time and help with advice. And in the Discord chat you can always ask for advice. Use the website McMobile Source. Come where you can find many useful features. I remind you that I don't speak English and creating such videos takes a lot of time and sometimes several days. Therefore, show me by your activity that you are interested in my videos. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, write comments, ask questions and like. It depends on you how soon I will release the next video when it gets 1000 views and 100 likes.
Don't forget, there are no useless cards in Mortal Kombat Mobile. There are only players who don't know how to use them. Get over here!